Just before I call up the next presenter, I'd like the committee to know that the 5:45 presenter has canceled. So we will now hear from the Ontario Network of Injured Workers, please. Yes, the last one. Good afternoon. If you could please identify yourselves for the purpose of Hansard, and then your 5-minute presentation will begin.
Okay, my name is Karl Crevar. I represent the Ontario Network of Injured Workers as well as the Canadian Injured Workers Alliance in Ontario.
My name is David Newberry. I'm a community legal worker with Injured Workers Community Legal Clinic, supporter of ONIWG.
Let me first begin by saying the first round of these hearings went around. You asked for submissions or people to put in their names to be able to present in person. I'm really disappointed again. I know that we've heard various organizations that have some working combinations together, yet when the Ontario Network of Injured Workers groups from different communities put their names in to be heard, they're not being heard. I'm the only one from that organization of injured workers that I'm aware of to be heard. That's despairing. And the reason I say that, there's a very strong message when we start to talk about the effects of Bill 148, particularly minimum wage. I want to say we support wholeheartedly the increase. It's been far too long that it's taken this far to get the minimum wage up to people that need it. But I'm not going to get into the Bill 148, the concerns that labor has and some of the business have. I want to get into the top end part because I pointed this out the last time to this committee, why we're here. We are concerned that when, particularly with the workplace safety and insurance portion of it, that has obviously, I have not seen any amendments that you had from that last submission to address our concerns. You have some of the most vulnerable people in Ontario when we talk about that. What are we doing with them? We're disregarding them. We've been disregarded for well over 30 years or more. We come to committees and we say, this is what is happening, this is what is happening, and yet nothing is being done. Nothing is being done. I tell you, historically, 3 major pieces of legislation that have been introduced from 1990 to 1997 reduced benefits. Those people have been living in poverty ever since, and we wanted to address that to the government. So I want to share the concern with you on that. We need you. We know that cannot be part of the Bill 148 legislation, the WSIB. We are concerned that if this goes ahead, what the Compensation Board is going to do is to use that increase to deflect and cut benefits even further. So when we heard the previous presenters that were saying poverty levels in Toronto they need a wage increase of around $16-18, and in Hamilton, which is where I come from, it's a high rate of poverty that's there. You're going to increase that poverty to the most vulnerable people in this province, and that's going to be downloaded onto the communities themselves, and that is wrong. It's humanly wrong. That's been going on far too long. What I would suggest to you is we have talked to the board, we have talked to the government, and said, listen, you have to address this issue. They need from this committee to give direction to the government to instruct the WSIB not to go down that road beginning January 1. They're already doing it. They're already calculating benefits based on $14 per hour. Those people are young people who are earning minimum wage right now. If they get God help them if they get hurt next year, they're not going to get a dime. They're going to be out of work, they're going to be hurt, they're going to have permanent impairments, they're not going to get a dime. And that's what we have to look after. I want to turn it over now to David.
Sure, absolutely. What Carl's talking about is a practice called deeming.
Excuse me, could you identify yourself,
My name
please?
is David Newberry. I'm a community legal worker with Injured Workers Community Legal Clinic and a supporter of ONIWG. We've been in communication. The reason that we've come to this committee and asked for this committee to give direction is that we have been through Freedom of Information requests and through correspondence with the WSIB and the Ministry of Labor asking what the plan is. The issue here is a process called deeming or determining, where the WSIB pretends injured worker has a job at a fabricated wage. So if somebody is injured now and they the minimum wage goes up, the suspicion is the WSIB will then reduce workers' benefits by this higher fabricated wage. We wrote to the WSIB to ask how many people this is going to affect. They said, we have no idea. We said, what are you going to do about it? They said, nothing until it becomes law, then we'll think about it. And we alerted the Minister of Labour as well, and he said, this is kind of up to the WSIB. And I've brought along a package of my adventures in pen pals with the ministry and the WSIB for people to take that shows that there's nobody is raising concerns. We're raising concerns, and no one in the ministry or at the WSIB is thinking about what is going to happen.
The first round of questioning would be with the government. MPP Potts.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. I actually had the pleasure of meeting with a group of you last 2 weeks ago,
yep.
And we've been reading some petitions in the House because I got a lot of empathy with the concerns that you're raising. And unfortunately, the workplace changing reforms, the WSIB wasn't part of the changing workplace reform review, but it is something we absolutely need to look at and look very closely. When we shifted from a compensation board to an insurance board, I think there were some unintended consequences that we need to take a very serious look at. So I get the issue of deeming. I get the issue of not respecting your own physicians down it. And so I know it's something that we will be looking at into the future, but it's unfortunately nothing I think we can do in this bill. Feel free to comment if you like, but
I don't know what to say. We're not in government. You've never met with me as the labor critic to discuss these issues, but I certainly, it's not hard to see that you're passionate about them. It doesn't, Bill 148 doesn't directly deal with them. It is an issue that I think is worth talking about. But I haven't had that conversation with you or your representatives at this point.
We have, I know injured workers that are affiliated with our office have written you with concerns about deeming and haven't heard back.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, I'll send it again.
I'm not aware of that. And when would that have been sent?
It would have been earlier in the summer. Yeah.
If I could maybe add,
no problem. I'll resend it.
Maybe add to that. We make no bones about it. We're doing a province-wide campaign to bring public awareness, not just to the public, but also to the politicians of what's happened over the number of years, and that has to stop. The truth has to be told, and people have to be treated as human beings. So we are going to do a campaign on this, around this. And from what I understand, we've talked to some MPPs already, a number of you, and we will, from the other communities, we will be contacting the MPPs and get their opinions as well, so that we can put our positions forward. It's gone on far too long.
Just I was trying to make the connection with this particular legislation. Made mention the negative impact on poverty and downloading on the vulnerable. You said $14 an hour and not getting a dime. You're making a link with this increase in the wage, but it doesn't.
Yes.
doesn't translate into a ratio
There's
of an increase in WSIB payments?
If so, this is a quick example. Let's say somebody is working at making $13 an hour right now, and they get injured. They may get benefits for a little while, and the WSIB has a habit that they call determining, that many people call deeming, of pretending that injured workers have jobs that they don't. So they might look at this worker and say, well, we think that you should probably be a Walmart greeter right now, and so that would be a minimum wage job, and so we are going to reduce your benefits by $11.40 an hour, pretending that you have this phantom job. So when the minimum wage goes up to $14 an hour, somebody who is making 12 or 13 right now, who would still be getting a meager sum amount of money from the WSIB, our fear is will then say, well, now you could be working as a Walmart greeter for $14 an hour, and so we're going to subtract $14 an hour from your benefits.
Just send us the check.
And then it'll be zero. So that is.
Thank you.
is the concern.
Move to the third party, MPP Forrester.
Go ahead and finish.
That was it. I mean, that is that we have seen in the past that there's been different approaches at different times that the minimum wage has gone up. At times, the WSIB has used it as an opportunity to decrease the benefits of workers, and we have historical examples of that. And at times, they have said, no, we understand that this is a moment in which there's something happening that is supposed to benefit all workers, and that should include injured workers. And that's what we're looking for, is a statement from the government or direction from this committee or a statement from the WSIB that says, no, we are not going to use this change, which is meant to benefit all workers, in order to re-injure injured workers financially. And in this package that I'll send around, we can see, even though the WSIB says they're not acting on it right now, they are already deeming workers at a future minimum, at an anticipated future minimum wage, resulting in them getting zero benefits.
So, if the government wanted to, the government could open up any act that they want to, and actually make the changes so that injured workers in Ontario would not be impacted by the minimum wage increase. I could bring an amendment forward, but if I brought an amendment forward, the government would rule it out of order because they would say the WSIB Act is not open, which is why we didn't bring an amendment forward the last time. But we have a majority government sitting right over there, and they can open up whatever they want. I've seen it done in the past where they've just opened up one little section of an act to say, because there was housekeeping that needed to be made to make that act mirror whatever they were changing in this act, and when they want to do it, they can do it. And so I'm putting it on the government to actually do the right thing and do it quickly before the injured workers in this province, who aren't getting a whole lot of money out of WSIB when they've been deemed, to make sure that they do not go further into poverty because of this.
I just want to respond. I mean, the most outrageous thing of this is you don't need legislative change. This is a policy within the board that can be done. But they need the direction from the government to say, here's what we're doing in the minimum wage, look after this part here. We've been playing political football with people's lives between the WSIB and the government. We tell the WSIB, here's the problem, we want to work with you to fix it. They say, well, it's not our problem, it's the government. We go to the government. This is what the board tells them. Go back to the WSIB because of arm's length. And that's false.
Well, the government can actually make a call to Tom Tehan tomorrow or to Elizabeth Whitmer and actually make that work.
That's correct.
Thank you.
She wouldn't listen to me.
Thank you. The deadline to send a written submission to the clerk of the committee is 5 p.m. on Friday, November 3rd.
Okay,
Thank
I'll pass
you.
this over to the clerk as well. Thanks, guys.
And we will be in touch.